Good Enough. It's a newer channel that I reacted to a video of theirs already, and I thought it was pretty damn good. They just put one out here recently. Hell, fucking yesterday, I think. And Nikki has never seen any of this stuff. I think this is like the third video on the channel, so it's pretty new. And this video, let's see how long it's been out. It has been out for 23 hours, and it's already got nearly 700,000 views. So doing something right.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the last video, which was about animals that like to get hammered. And I didn't even.
There are a lot of animals that go out of their way to.
There are.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any big interest in that subject until I watched that documentary of those fucking monkeys at that resort that went around stealing people's booze and were just getting fucking trashed.
I haven't watched it.
They were like conspiring.
Monkeys are a little scary.
To be like, all right, during this time, like if they're rolled over that way, we'll go grab their beer or whatever. Like they knew to like watch to make sure you weren't paying attention, and then they would. And some of them, if they knew they were getting caught, would start trying to chug it while they were running, so that they,
chug.
You know, like the shit was crazy. It just reminds me of like this Halloween party actually that I went to.
This reminds you of a Halloween party that you went to? We don't live where there are monkeys.
The monkeys stealing the booze. Look,
I know.
So I was partying at. Me and a few of my friends. One of them was the linebacker for the football team in college. He was a big ass dude. He was dressed kind of like fucking Rambo. So he had like all this camo paint and shit all over his body because of course he's ripped. So he's going like out there hoe chasing like no shirt. But he's got like these bands around his muscles that were camo. And he's got a headband that's camo and camo pants and boots and shit. And we lost him throughout the night. Like, you know, this guy had body counts in several hundreds when we were like 18 years old.
Do I know this person?
Yes, you do. Yes.
This is the person
it
that
is
I'm
the person
thinking
that
of?
you're thinking. We lost him. And there was this area in my hometown where there was like frat house.
Yeah.
Like when I was a freshman, this shit was like all lined up on this street. It's changed since because of all kinds of crazy reasons, but we're like, fuck, the police are everywhere. Like they had just hit all at the same time. It was like 5 cop cars at every frat house and just like shit going crazy and everything. And so we're walking past this one frat house, and then we see over to the side, coming out from the basement of this place, you know, my friend with cases of beer that he had stolen from the party. Your friend who's
dressed as Rambo?
Yes. We lost him, right? So we see him just hauling ass with all of this beer, shirtless, hammered.
Wait,
3 o'clock in the morning. One of the basements of one of the frat houses.
So not his
No,
frat.
everybody had just been tripping out because the police are here. He takes advantage of this situation.
Seize the opportunity.
And
I love it.
Instead of being like, oh fuck, everything's going to shit.
Let's calm down. Now is your time.
Now's the time. Exactly.
Like
and so it's like a war movie, you know, you just see him. And one of our other friends was around and like had a car so we could get out of there. Like he was where we were going was to get the fuck out of there. So it just all worked out. And so we went back to where we were staying and just drank beer.
So like you all, was he in the fraternity?
No.
Okay, so
you
weren't
one of those
in the
guys
at this point?
No.
Okay.
He was one of those guys, and I was one of those guys that just like to have a good time.
Yeah.
So everybody knew we were going to show up and throw down.
I didn't know if this was like a rival of the fraternity brothers.
No,
like
this
show up and steal their beer. I don't know.
This was a countryman showing up.
I need beer
to take the beer, which reminds me of the monkeys.
Yeah,
we don't have any allegiance to anybody. We're here to get hammered. There's alcohol there. I'm getting it. And it reminded me of him doing that shit. Like,
I don't condone stealing, but I respect this.
Well, see, the police were going to take the alcohol anyway. Sure. But anyway, you know, Good Enough makes these badass animations about these interesting topics. The last one was animals getting hammered. This one is the failed cures, plural, for the plague.
I feel like there are going to be so many disgusting things because immediately my thought went to What We Do in the Shadows, nausea, where Guillermo was sick and she was like, if it were up to me, I would just rub your broken ankle and donkey piss. And so I immediately go to some really disgusting places.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Let's start with the strange and slowly work our way towards the most horrifying things on the list. Number 10. The 4 Thieves Vinegar. So legend has it that a group of 4 thieves would loot and ransack the homes of people who had recently died from the plague. They would go on to steal from dozens of victims without any of them ever getting sick.
What?
They stayed safe by rubbing a secret potion over their entire bodies. But eventually these thieves would be caught and apprehended by the authorities. They were then offered their freedom in exchange for the recipe of this secret potion, which they revealed to be a mixture of vinegar, garlic, herbs, and spices. No one knows for certain if this story is true, but this was a very popular tale during this time period. This would lead merchants to go door to door selling this vinegar mixture as a preventative for the plague. Buyers were instructed to rub this potion on their hands, ears, and temple.
Dude, I would rather die from the plague than go around and everybody smell like stinking ass vinegar.
I don't know about rubbing it on your skin, but like if you intake, like good spices and vinegar is good for you and garlic's really good for you. It's not going to prevent it, but like it might help you not get ass sick.
Nope, I ain't got time for none of that goop bullshit. Nope.
But if the merchant had them hook, line, and sinker, he would simply just tell them to lather it over their entire bodies. Since everyone knows the number one rule in sales is always upsell when you can. And surprisingly, this potion would work really well against the bubonic plague, thanks to the mixture containing the herb mugwort, which is a natural bug repellent. And since the bubonic plague was spread from the fleas of infected rodents, this would prove to be one of the very few remedies that actually worked. But sadly, fleas were not the only way of contracting the Black Plague, the second method being much more deadly and was most commonly spread from human to human. This would be known as the pneumonic plague, which often carried a 100% mortality rate. This form usually spreads when a person inhales the airborne droplets of an infected person, which caused the disease to infect the lungs. And of course, the potion would prove to be completely useless against this form of infection. Number 9. Quack doctors. Throughout history, when the Black Plague would break out, those with financial means would flee from cities and escape to the countryside. This would of course include the majority of the city's doctors, leaving behind a massive and lucrative market for quacks, where they would post up on city corners selling powders, potions, magical cures, and anything else that they could think of. They would yell at the top of their lungs at people walking by, letting them know that they were selling the latest and greatest cures or preventatives for the plague or any other ailments. Are you in search for the best preventative for the plague? Then you need to be eating unicorn horn powder. What the hell are you doing? Have a stomach ache? Oh, that's the first sign of the plague. So drink this fermented potion. Tastes terrible, shut up and drink it. Don't you want to feel better? Of course you do. Feeling ill? Eat a baby foot. Have a headache? Place this magical stone under your bed, sniff the squirrel hide, cover yourself in salmon oil, and jump into your neighbor's bath. You will be feeling better by tomorrow, but if for some reason, by some miracle, my 100% guaranteed remedy doesn't work, come back for a full refund after 10 days of your initial first symptoms.
10 days.
Now, here's a list of some of the most common items that a quack doctor would sell throughout history, just so you can get an idea of how scummy these guys really were. Snake oil, of course. Chill and fever tonic. Miracle elixirs that cured pretty much everything. Ointments that would cure baldness. But my favorite one, real? A tincture that would restore life in the event of sudden death.
Yeah, you would be dead, so how would you
And since these quacks sold
could.
whatever they wanted, we can only assume that there's probably hundreds of other items that were never documented. Number 8. Urine. Back during the medieval period, urine had a great reputation since it was thought to have cleansing and healing properties. So naturally, it would be used as a form of treatment for the plague. Finally, a remedy I can afford.
No, wait. We watched an episode of My Strange Addiction or something. Remember that dude and his girlfriend that used piss for literally everything?
Okay, literally, like, okay.
They used piss for everything.
Don't do this. Warning, don't be stupid and do this and then blame it on us. On an episode of My Strange Addiction, there was this, like, dude who pretended like he was like, oh, I'm super bro fit, know everything about how to, like, get healthy, look at me. And he would not only drink his urine,
bathe.
Listen, this man, don't fucking do this. Would sniff, like get a like cup.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Sniff, like
to clear his sinuses out and shit.
Like sniff and
like,
drink.
Like not sniff like smell, but he would like pour, like you know those neti pot things. Like piss. That.
And he got his girlfriend, which she was just in it because she was on TV, to start doing it too. So the mom was like, this is so concerning. Please go to the doctor.
Yeah. And
the doctor was like, okay, all of this is like no good. Your blood work says like this level is like super high. Don't be doing this. Is there anything else that you do other than drink your piss? And he was like, you know, like, sometimes on the occasion, he was doing it like every day, I'll like sniff my piss to clear my sinuses. And she's like, did you know that you can fucking die from doing that? Because it'll like give you, I can't remember what it was.
Some kind of bacterial shit. Like, yeah.
It can like go through your like blood-brain barrier and like get in your fucking brain or some shit.
How about this? Nope.
You piss? And it's like, the reason that he was doing it is because he said, like, it was, like, full of, like, nutrients. Like, he didn't want to waste anything. It's literally waste. This
motherfucker was, what do you call it? Tripping.
As Naja would say, you pisses and you shits.
Yeah.
But pisses and shits is waste. Don't be doing nothing with none of that.
With the disease was encouraged to take a bath with clean urine to relieve some of their painful symptoms. The urine would be collected from healthy people and sold to the sick, where it was then added to their bath water, or better yet, consumed directly from the glass. But if I was alive during this time period, I for one could never bring myself to partake in such a disgusting and humiliating practice. Buying from a middleman. Since I always say drinks are at their best straight from the faucet. Number 7, miasma theory. One of the most popular theories at this time was that the plague was contracted by inhaling bad air, or simply put, bad odors. The long list of these bad smells included organic and human waste, decaying flesh, contaminated water, and of course, the Dutch oven, which was a guaranteed way to be put on trial for attempted murder. Bad smells were believed to carry contaminated air, which once inhaled would lead to illness. The public was encouraged to carry around flowers, rose petals, or herbs, which they would oftentimes hold to their nostrils, since they believed that the sweet smell would cancel out the bad air. This is one of the reasons plague doctors would wear these terrifying masks, since the beak would be filled with flowers and spices, which they believed helped keep the disease at bay. But of course, these wonderful smells did absolutely nothing in preventing people from catching the plague. If anything, it just gave people a false sense of security. Number 6, leeches. Leeches were commonly used by the wealthy as a form of bloodletting, and was relatively painless considering what the alternative was. But more on that one later. Bloodletting is when blood is drained from a patient, usually from an incision or leeches. Here, the leeches would be placed on a person's body while they kick back, relax, and let the leeches go to town. The theory behind this was that the leeches would suck out the bad blood, which was thought to cause illness. But the irony being that the leech's bite was the thing that could make them ill, since it always carried the chance of developing an infection. Now, originally, I didn't think this whole leech operation sounded too bad, until I saw the diagram for the most common locations for bloodletting. Number 5, the Vickery method. The Vickery method was named after Thomas Vickery, the English doctor who invented the technique. And this would become one of the most popular cures during the plague. This first begins with a healthy chicken having its bottom plucked clean. The chicken's back door is then placed directly on a sick person's buboes and strapped down to keep it in place.
Why?
The logic behind this was based on the belief that chickens breathe through their back door. So in theory, it would suck out and absorb the sickness from the person. And if the chicken contracts the plague from the human and begins to show signs of illness, people would oftentimes take this as a sign that the remedy was working. If the chicken happens to die before the human, another chicken simply takes its place. Now, I can only speculate since there isn't much written on the subject, but this seems like a sure way to get an infection. You see, buboes would oftentimes grow so large that they would rupture, and a chicken's bottom attached to an open wound just seems like the best way to get your admission ticket to the afterlife. Number 4, flagellation. In Europe, during the medieval period, religion was deeply ingrained into all aspects of life. So naturally, people began to believe that the Black Plague was simply a punishment from God for their sins. Soon, groups of people began to gather and walk the streets while vigorously whipping themselves as a public display of repentance. While I, for one, prefer to keep this kink at home. But to each their own. These groups of people would use leather whips with knotted tails, but some show-offs would take it a step further by adding nails to their whips. These flagellant groups would recruit others when they would slowly walk from town to town, whipping their own backs and carrying crosses. They would do this act multiple times a day. But the real tragedy would come when one of these individuals would be infected with the plague, since they were left to fight an uphill battle with an already deadly disease. And having a weak body that was severely cut up from the self-inflicted wounds definitely didn't help. Number 3, feces. As time went on, physicians began to try all sorts of bizarre methods in the hopes of finding a cure, with this special paste being one of them. The paste consisted of tree resin, flower roots, and human poop. This operation would first begin with the patient's buboes getting sliced open, and as soon as the incision was made, it would then be stuffed with the paste, then tightly wrapped and sealed to hold everything in place. Patients would then be instructed to get some bed rest and wait. Now, if the patient's body part had not fallen off by the following morning, they would for sure be left fighting a losing battle, since it had now turned into a 2v1 with the person fighting against the plague and the infection. Number 2, bloodletting. This was an extremely popular medical procedure that was used from ancient times all the way through the late 19th century. This procedure was in fact so popular that during the medieval period, this would oftentimes be the first thing a doctor would recommend. This absolute nightmare would first start with a person getting their arm sliced open and allowing the blood to drain into a bowl. Now, if a cut on the arm made you uncomfortable, don't worry, since you always have the option to have the incision made on your neck instead. Now, the instruments that were used to slice patients open look like this, but just covered in blood from the previous patient. Since being sanitary wasn't much of a concern during this time period, which of course would cause many patients to die from infection. But one of the most concerning things about this procedure was the amount of blood that would be drained, since it was common practice to increase the amount drained based on the severity of the person's sickness.
Oh, God.
Have a headache? That's 2 teaspoons. A fever? That's 16 ounces. A crippling social anxiety that prevents you from enjoying social gatherings. Yep, that one is about a gallon.
I'm dead.
Now, surprisingly, doctors were not usually the person to perform bloodletting and was actually a task left for barbers, since they were a lot more skilled in handling razors. This is the reason why they began to place the red stripe on the barber pole outside of the building, since it would let the public know that surgery was performed inside. Barbers would also pull teeth, amputate limbs, and make holes in people's heads. Number 1, extermination. Now, this would easily be the most extreme measure taken during the medieval period in the attempt to stop the plague. One of the groups that was heavily targeted were the Jewish. This would first start when the rumors began to circulate that the Jews had intentionally poisoned the drinking wells. So on September of 1348, a group of Jews would be taken as prisoners to Chillon Castle on Lake Geneva. There,
you have talked about, it's been years since you first mentioned that in the video. You were like, every single time.
I've been saying it for longer than that.
Why? And people in the comments were like, no, blah, 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 blah. And it's like...
Dude, I swear to God, you get to every conspiracy theory everything, it's always like somebody mad at the Jews. Just like they'll shoehorn it into anything. Like, why everybody's always mad at the Jews, man? It's crazy.
Is that
They were
guy's face? It's that guy's face. Okay.
Really tortured until one of them would finally confess to poisoning the drinking water, which of course was not true.
Yeah.
The information of this confession was then sent to various cities in Germany, and once the news arrived, it began to spread like wildfire throughout many countries in Europe. And thousands of Jews would then be targeted and murdered for this false confession. It was even documented that Jews from the age of 7 and up were all considered guilty for this crime, since the belief was that they all had previous knowledge of this plan. Even though the Jewish community was clearly suffering as they themselves were being decimated by the plague. But this wouldn't seem to matter to the general public, and the killings would tragically continue. And it wouldn't be until the spread of the plague began to slow down that the murders would too.
I did not.
Dude, I'm so glad that I wasn't alive during that shit.
Someone in our comments said, fun fact, my great-grandfather was a barber and would also perform surgery as well as closing wounds and helping childbirth and the like. I knew that the red stripe was for blood, but I didn't remember like why, which is probably something that I should have thought about more.
Yeah.
It's like,
look, for me, I never
like
gave a
Sweeney
fuck. I
Todd.
always thought that there was just like candy cane looking things outside.
I knew it because a girl that
I thought
went
it was
to
some relation to like fucking Santa Claus or something.
school studied cosmetology.
Santa
And they
Claus
actually
got a beard.
had like a book and like had to like learn stuff. I was like, you don't just do hair. She's like, no, we have to read and like study and stuff.
Motherfucking Sweeney Todd.
That's why I said it's not like it's fucking Sweeney Todd. Like, so I should have been like, why do they have blood? Like, why is that?
But
anyway.
also, the idea that germs were carried by odors.
But yet
at the
you
same time
open
you're using
up
piss
and
and
you're going
shit.
to literally stuff shit into an open wound.
Vinegar is actually antiseptic, right?
I'm pretty sure
Vinegar
it
cleans
smells bad, though.
shit. But
Yeah,
like, yeah,
people use that as
they
cleaning,
thought
yeah.
everything that smelled bad was like fucking poisonous or like dirty or something.
But
Like that's how you got
was
sick, was
rubbing
smelling
shit
shit.
on people. I don't know. Maybe those
Right.
two things don't fucking add up.
But whenever germ theory was shown to be like what it is,
Which doctors got laughed the fuck out of hospitals and stuff.
people were mad
Yeah.
about the idea that could be a thing. They were like, I mean, think about it.
That's
You
so
go
crazy
from
to me.
thinking like shit was so simple to no,
That shit
there
was
are
literally medicine.
shit tons of tiny microscopic organisms
That you
crawling
can't
around that you
see.
can't see that are making you
I
sick.
guess that would make
They
you
were
feel
like, what the fuck?
like,
That ain't
science?
true.
This exists? We can't just
Yeah.
whip ourselves with nails and get better? I mean, like, that theory feels way easier. Like, oh, you did something wrong? Just fucking, like, I can't even say that. It's so bad. I can't even say it.
Good enough. Wild ass video. Pretty talented content creator. Dude is really fucking killing it. So, yeah, I enjoyed
We'll have to
the
check
other video.
out more of those with caution.
With caution. You gotta be prepared for that shit.
Yeah.
But hopefully you guys enjoyed our reaction. Go subscribe to Good Enough. I think he's close to 300,000 subs now.
Awesome.
With like fucking 3 videos, I
That's
think.
crazy.
So
That's awesome.
killer shit. Awesome. Definitely gonna be checking out more of it. Thank you guys for hanging out, and we will see you next
See you
time.
guys.